Welcome to another edition of Whiskey, Games, and Nerd Stuff. Today's whiskey is going to be some High West whiskey that I put in my coffee cup. Gotta love that. And today's Nerd Stuff is going to be talking about a solo player game called Coffee Roaster. I briefly talked about this in another video, but I wanted to go ahead and do a quick playthrough. For this playthrough, we're just going to do one roast, one round. And for those who have not seen this game, I would highly recommend it. What's kind of cool about this is you're basically going to make a cup of coffee, and the game can last between 10 and 30 minutes, depending on if you want to do one quick round or do a light, medium, and high roast. You have a number of different coffee cards that you can pick. You have the tokens that'll come into play, and they're all in this bag. And what I really appreciate about this game is all the tokens that you need will actually be in this little handy case. So everything that you need will actually be in a little slot. So I love when the games have these little container slots for all the pieces. So the purpose of this game, again, is to make a cup of coffee. And what'll happen is the first thing you do is you pick your recipe so in this particular one, we will pick this recipe. It'll tell you what game pieces, tokens you're going to get. You're going to get 13 zeros, 3 of the hard beans, 3 moisture, 1 burnt bead, these particular game pieces. And then what we're trying to do is get a perfect roast. And the perfect roast in this particular one is we want to get a score of 14. A roast of 14 will give us 10 points. You also get points if you have these flavors. And then you'll also get points later on based on this scoring system. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and do a quick version. Let me go ahead and get another little sip of my coffee. You know, I hate to waste good whiskey in the coffee, but sometimes it's good to mix a high quality whiskey with something, you know, normally a High West, this High West bourbon, I would just drink and sip it, but I thought with the coffee, let's just go ahead and have some Irish coffee. So what'll happen is you put this little starter in here, and the starter is based on how many moistures that you're gonna have in here. So in this particular one, we've got 3 moistures, and it's gonna have a starting point of 8. So that's the starting point of our kind of how hot the coffee is going to be. So this means that we're going to pick 8 tokens. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what happens when you do the tokens, there's a few effects that go into place. I'm going to go ahead and move this perfect roast over here just for now. So the first thing you do is you get rid of all the moisture tokens. So because this is a moisture token, this is a remove from your bag permanently. Then what happens with what we've drawn here is everything's going to cook. So what'll happen is this will turn into a 0. So that will turn into a 0, and we're going to put it back in the bag. And then these are all going to cook 1 level. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ones. So what we'll do is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what's going to happen is all those zeros are now out of the game for now. We've got those that are cooked to 1. Then we want to move this up to 6 because we've added 6 points. This is more of a reference where for this particular blend, we're trying to get to a 14 to get that perfect blend. This gives you an idea of how many total points are in your bag. And that'll come later in the play when we're trying to make our cup of coffee. So we put these back in. We shake up the bag. Now we go to the next level of cooking, which now we're on a level 9. So now we're going to do 9 tokens. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now we've got a couple different things on this time. So we've got a couple options that we can do. What I like to do early on is I'm going to use a 0 and use a 1 to take this wild aroma flavor and put it back in the bag. We are going to get rid of the zeros. And then we have a couple options. Right now, we don't want to use these options yet until we get some higher numbers. So, and I'll explain that as we go. So what's going to happen is this is going to turn into a 0. And then those 2 zeros turn into a 1. And then this is, I want to call it, I think it's a bad bean or a dead bean. Right now, we're not going to do anything. These will come into play, but right now we don't have anything that we want to use those for. So these will go back into the bag. We'll go ahead and shake it up. Let's take a sip of our Irish whiskey. And then we are going to move now to 10. Now what will happen is, this is a smoke counter, so this smoke counter automatically goes back in the bag. And then everything that we're cooking... Oh, and I forgot to move those zeros up to the 1s, so I believe that's a 9. So we're going to mix up our bag. Now, everything that we pull out is going to cook 2 levels. So we're going to do 10 of these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So first thing we want to do is get rid of the moisture. Then we have a couple options. So this is something where you can have 1 bean turn into 2, which right now isn't gonna help us. At least not at this point. So these are all gonna cook 2 levels. So these are gonna turn into 3s. So there's 4 right there. They're gonna turn into 3s. So let's go ahead and move these away now. And then that meant we went up 2, 4, 6, 8. So now we're at about 17. These are all going to move up to 2s. 2, 3, 4. So now we're up to 25. And we're a little bit higher than we need to be because our perfect blend is going to be to 14. And this will kind of come into play later. So what's going to happen is we will be using some of these beans how they're supposed to be once we shake this up. So now this is going to go to roast a level 11. We'll mix up the bag, pull out 11 tokens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So now what we're going to do is we want to start using some of these. Now, we need to keep a couple of these. We want to keep 2 blues and a green if we can for our flavor later on. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we can take 2 beans and make it into 1. And how we do that is I can spend this red. And this is going to be how we're going to get some of these levels. So I'm going to spend this red to take these 2. We'll do these 2, and that's a total of 4. And we're going to break that apart into 2 2s. And because we broke those apart, those go back in the bag. Then we can take 1 bean and turn it into 2. Which we kind of want to do, let's see, we'll do 1 bean and turn it into 2. So we'll do this and make this 2 1s. And those will go back in the bag. Now, if we want to, we can go ahead and use one of these to get rid of these, because these will give you negative points later on. But we're going to get 2 more of those smokes in the next round, so it's going to make more sense to do that later. I can pay a green, and I'm going to do that right now to put it here to hold this. So this is not going to go cook to level 4. So we put that back in the bag. Because we now have done that, I get this little tray token, which means at the end of when we make our cup phase, I open up these 3 slots. So that's really good. So now what's going to happen is this is going to turn into a 0. These are going to turn into 3s. And now we went up to about 24. And my numbers are going to be off now because I just realized I wasn't adding the points right from when we added those and took them together. This isn't a mandatory thing. This just kind of helps you keep track of where things are at. So now we're going to go up 1 round. These 2 go in here. Everything now is going to cook 2. We're going to pull out 12. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So now we've got a situation where I'm going to go ahead and pay a blue to get rid of these. So these are all bad. These are all going to give us negative points. So I can pay that blue, get rid of those, so they're no longer going to be going against us. Let's see. We want to get to a 14. We don't want to have too many 3s. The red does turn 2 into 1. So let's do this. I'm going to... How do I want to do this? Yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that yet. I think what we can do is... Oh, shoot. Because since we're going to cook 2, these beans are going to burn if we... So if they go to 4, then they go to a burnt bean. So we've got to figure out how we want to do this. So these are going to turn into 3s. These are going to turn into 2s. These are going to go ahead and burn. So we want to at least get rid of one of these. So we want to turn 1 bean into 2. Now, keep in mind, we need to have a couple of these flavors, but I kind of think I messed this up here on this one. So I'm going to go ahead and use this green to put the sweetener effect in place. And the sweetener effect can be any of the sweeteners. I'm going to put this 3 back in the bag so it doesn't cook twice. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take this blue and actually, you know what we'll do is this. We'll take this red and take 2 beans into 1. So we're going to make that a 4. And that goes back in the bag. And then what's going to happen is these are going to turn into 3 and those are going to turn into 2. So we'll have 2 3s, 2 2s. Oops. We basically went up 2, 4, 6, 8, but I already know our points are going to be off because I wasn't keeping track like I'm supposed to. So I think we're going to be around that 30 range, which is not good. So then what we're going to do is we put these back in the bag. Let's go ahead and take a drink. Now we're going to stop and do the roasting phase, or the roasting phase, but the cup phase. So what happens is we're going to draw tokens out of here, filling this cup up. And then we start here and work our way here. And remember, what we're trying to do is get to 14 and use these sweeteners if we can. So let's go ahead and see what we can do. So the first token that we pull is a 4, which really we don't want the 4 in here, to be honest, because getting the 14 is pretty... We're going to get there pretty quickly. So I'm going to actually put the 4 here, and you'll kind of see why. Pull out a 3, so we'll do there. So now we have 3 points. Pull out another token. Okay. That's going to put us at 6 points. And we're already going to get too high, so I'm going to put that 3 there. Okay, now we're at 8 points. We need a blue. So now we have 2 of the 3 sweeteners, a 0, so 3, 6, 8. We need 6 more. I'm going to go ahead and put a 0 there. The smoke token we don't want. I'll use the 2, so now we got 3, 6, 8, 10. So we just need 4 more points to get that perfect blend. Oh, shoot. You know what? I think we're okay. So 3, 6, 9, 11, 13, right? So we're at 13, so we just need 1 more for that perfect blend. So we don't want the 3. We don't want the 2. Darn it. We're getting low on these. We do want the bean. So now we have our 2 blues and a green. And right now we're at 3, 6, 9, 13. So we want to pull out a 1 if we can. And I don't know if we have a 1 in here. Nope, there's not a 1 there. We've got a 2. And darn it. We have to, since we had a spots, we have to put this here. So now what happened is we've got 3, 6, 9 plus the 6 puts us at 15. So when we go ahead and do our score, because we got a 15 roast, we'd get 7 points. Then the next thing that would happen is we would look at, did we get our sweeteners? We needed 2 blues and a green, so that can count as any. So that's 2 blues and 1 green, because we got 3 of the flavor points. That gives us 6 points. So we've got the 7 points plus the 6 points. That puts us at 13, and then you have your skill points. The skill points looks at how many of the same number you had. So we have 3 3s and 3 2s. So because we had 3 3s, we get a point. And because we had 3 2s, you get a point. So that's 2 points plus our 6 points, which is 8, plus our 7 points, which is 15. And what will happen is you'll get these scorecards, which I haven't used yet, to go ahead and put your points. And then it'll tell you how well you did. Now, I kind of messed up there because I wasn't keeping track of what we had left in the bag. There was 1 more. So had we pulled that 1 instead of the 2, we would have had that perfect blend. So this is the easy mode on this map. You can flip it over and it'll have one that's a little bit tougher. And then, so this was the first round. So normally what would happen is you could play these, see how they have rounds of 3, where you have the light, medium, and dark roast. So you would normally pull out 3 of these many, many different, as you can tell, you've got different coffee blends. Some of them are beginner, some of them are expert, some of them are moderate, and then you've got a few that could be a little bit more challenging. So what'll happen is you would normally do a light roast, a medium roast, and then a dark roast, and then you would do the rounds of 3, and in the rule book that would tell you where you're at as far as that level. What'll happen is it'll tell you when you're playing the first round, I'll go ahead and play on here. Once you get to a certain number of points, I think it's 15 points, then you know you can kind of do the moderate and you work your way up. What's cool about this is each little card has what's the coffee that's on the back. And you saw kind of how quickly that is and intuitive. Some of the things that I kind of skipped over was had we put a blue here, we would have got that 3 to bend automatically bend that 3. And then had we gotten those 2 things, they would go in here. Had we gotten this one, we would have put the icon here, which would let us pull out 2 tokens and choose one for these spots. This one would let us choose some stuff off. This one lets us take out different things. So each one of these things lets us do something different. And I really enjoyed this game. I thought it was nice and simple. It was a nice little fun playthrough. I'll do a couple more videos of this where we kind of do a whole round. I've been keeping track of how I've done. And then what I do is, rather than using the scorecards, I kind of write, and it's a trick that I've done for years, and I've only played this game a couple times. I actually will write in the box my scores and how I did and what I'm playing. I've done that with a lot of games, especially solo games, and even games with friends. We'll go ahead and write down the score and who did what. It's kind of like a cool little thing to have, brings back memories. Really appreciate everybody taking the time to watch this video. Please like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. If you've played this game before, I would really love to hear what your comments were. What did I do wrong? Should I have done a different play? What could I have explained better? Would also love to hear what your favorite whiskey is to mix in with your coffee on a morning when you're just kind of relaxing. Until next time, cheers.